So here we have two samples of soil, and I ask you which soil would be better for plants to grow in. Right? So which soil is better for planting, A or B? And now I want you to tell me why you think it's better. Just what does your gut tell you which one of these is better for planting and why? Why is it better? So I think you all picked A, most of you. I think some of you picked A because you said it looked wet, and really we don't care about the water. Water is super important, but you can always add water to soil. So some of you thought B looks dry and that's no good, but we can always add water to B. So I think A looks better though because it's darker, and I think we all know that dark soil is better. So why is it dark? What's the dark part of that soil? And I think a lot of the times that dark is organic matter. So why is organic matter important for soil? Why is it good for plants? Let's review that. In fact, just go up in your notes just a little bit and you can tell me a couple reasons why organic matter is good for plants. Go ahead. So if you look back in your notes, we know that organic matter is dead stuff and living stuff, and the dead stuff provides those nutrients. Plants need nutrients, just like you need vitamins, you need nutrients, you get them from food. Plants get a lot of their nutrients from organic matter. Also, organic matter holds water, the dead stuff. But then there's living stuff. In that picture you saw there was worms. The living stuff actually breaks down the dead stuff. Something's got to eat it and poop it out and break it into smaller chunks until those nutrients get released. And the living stuff increases the space in the soil because it moves around. So we know that organic stuff's important for the soil. So we are going to fill out our notes F, uses of organic matter, because that's not the only reason why organic matter is important. So there's 3 different uses of organic matter, and they actually have 3 different names. And so we're going to talk about all 3 of those. The first one is compost, and that's what we're talking about. This is compost. It's highly broken down, decomposed stuff. It's, that might have been a cardboard box or lettuce, but you can't tell anymore. It's been broken down into such tiny pieces. We call it compost, and we know that's really good to put into the soil. This is mulch. And mulch is just slightly decomposed dead stuff. So it's pieces of, maybe that's a ground up fence. It's organic, but it's not broken down that much. So we put that on the top of the soil, and there's reasons why we do that. And then nature gives us this stuff, which is really just mulch, but it's natural mulch. So we call that humus. And humus is dead stuff on the top of the soil, and that's the sticks and leaves and things like that. Leaves and sticks. So 3 different forms of compost, but they all have different purposes. So let's write those down. So we know compost, we mix it into the soil. We know it's good for providing nutrients, and it increases water retention. And if you remember, water retention means it holds water. But what about that other mulch? And humus, why is that good for the soil? And this is almost as important, all right? So here's some soil, and it's completely exposed. It's exposed to the sun, and the sun is just going to beat down on that soil. What's that sun going to do to that soil? It's going to dry it out, right? So if you put some compost on top of that soil, or not compost, but if you put some mulch on top of that soil, it's not going to dry out because it's going to shade the soil. So mulch can shade the soil and prevent the soil from drying out. So here's a picture of a garden. That could look like my garden right now, and there's a few rows of good-looking plants. I'm sure these look like peas, and then maybe we got some lettuce here. But what about all these plants in the middle? What do we call these unwanted plants? These are weeds. Well, they grow because there's soil there and there's sunlight and there's water, so they're going to grow. But what if we covered the soil? So now we covered in mulch, there's no sun. The seeds can't grow, right? So besides shading the soil, we're going to keep the weeds from growing. These plants, are fine because they're sticking out, but the weeds are going to have a really tough time growing here. And not all weeds, but weeds are going to have a tough time growing. So look at this soil. I mean, we just studied this. What is this little thing right coming down in here? It looks like it was exposed, it rained, and there was a lot of erosion because the water can travel on top of the soil really fast. But if we cover that with mulch, the water won't travel as fast and it won't erode the soil. So it prevents erosion. Now this one's a little bit of a stretch. I think you can kind of tell what this is. This is a raindrop falling and hitting the ground. Anytime you hit the soil, bang the soil, even with raindrops, hard raindrops, you're going to compress the soil. The soil is going to compress and you're going to lose some of that space that's so important for water and air. So if you put mulch on the soil, you're going to have less compaction from rain. And so you can see there's a lot of really good reasons why we want to keep the mulch on top of the soil or the natural humus on top of the soil. It protects the soil. And these are just some of the things. There's a lot of other ideas too.